Tyrannosaurus was one of the most powerful builds in the game, even being strong enough to actually compete with something like Triceratops or Edmontosaurus or even Ankylosaurus, and was thought to maybe even hunt small sauropods. But how did it become the largest terrestrial carnivore that the game has ever seen? How? How did the players use their evolution code so well to create this S-tier beast? Let's find out today. Now, before we get into the actual Tyrannosaurus Rex, let's talk about where it originated from. It originated in the Jurassic period, from dinosaurs like Guanlong. Dinosaurs that looked more like the average theropod, with a long tail, 3 toes on each foot, 3 claws, and 1 head. Well, 1 head, obviously, but the average shaped head. But then it evolved into something even stronger. Players wanted to do something different. Nobody cared that much about bite. Sure, they want to have a decent bite, but they never cared that much to have a super amazingly strong bite. And they never cared that much about intelligence. They also cared a lot about large arms. And I can't blame you. When Tyrannosaurs were first made, they kind of fell into the same average theropod trap of having not such great intelligence, like average intelligence for time, average bite force, maybe even lower than average, and big arms. But these creatures want to do something different. They wanted to have high intelligence. Something that everybody thought was useless. Well, now humans exist in the current meta, so I guess they were wrong about the intelligence being useless part. They thought that such strong and powerful bite force was also pretty much useless. That they didn't need that strong of a bite force, and they just needed something. They just needed something strong enough to get through the skin. Something good enough. But Tyrannosaurs wanted something else. They wanted actual above average bite force. And they also thought something that every predatory creature every predatory dinosaur at that time thought was absolutely absurd: not having big arms. Because the Tyrannosaurs realized that the dinosaurs they never really used their arms that much in combat and hunting, and not even that much in mating and stuff. Tyrannosaurs thought that maybe they didn't really need arms that big. Arms were practically not that used. Not so much used in combat. Very little species actually used their arms in combat. But the Tyrannosaurs thought that this was useless, and if you had a big jaw, you don't really need big arms. Unless they're pronated to, like, humans, which you kind of do and stuff. Or if you use them for climbing. But Tyrannosaurs thought that they could get apex predator with this, not for something like climbing trees. And oh boy, they did. They sure did become apex predator. Now, with that out of the way, let's get into Tyrannosaurus Rex itself. Oh, Tyrannosaurus Rex. Oh boy, Tyrannosaurus Rex. The most OP terrestrial carnivore ever, and I still stand by that point. You cannot convince me otherwise. It was the apex predator of its environment, even doing the unthinkable like hunting ceratopsians, and even ankylosaurids, and even messing with the babies of something like Alamosaurus. Tyrannosaurus was overpowered, which we finally come to there. Now, I say Tyrannosaurus is overpowered without saying any evidence. But now, let's get finally to the point. Is Tyrannosaurus Rex species specifically, overpowered? Tyrannosaurus, Tyrant Lizard King. And I think it deserves that name. In Tierzoo's video, it's very controversial. He does stupid things like put hadrosaurs and Spinosaurus in D tier, and even do stuff like put Tyrannosaurus and Triceratops in B. And I stand by the point that Tyrannosaurus well deserves S tier in that tier list. 'Cause it was absolutely overpowered. The biggest T-Rex that I could find doing research was, I think, about 10 tons. Was the biggest T-Rex player known. But maybe there were bigger T-Rex players back then. Nobody knows, 'cause everything is gone now. Yay. But we still have fossils in the current meta to tell us about some things that we actually didn't know about these creatures now. Tyrannosaurus had a bone-crushing bite, And could you blame them? They had to fight against stuff like Triceratops and Edmontosaurus. Edmontosaurus and Triceratops are reliving tanks. Same with Ankylosaurus. I still stand by that point that Edmontosaurus is one of the tanks. Fight me. Anyways, Tyrannosaurus was also very large, and I think it was actually even bigger than Triceratops, but I'm pretty sure that largest known player of Edmontosaurus is still bigger than the largest known player of Tyrannosaurus, according to my research. So, no, it wasn't bigger than Edmontosaurus, but it was bigger than Triceratops. Well, was thought to be bigger than Triceratops back then. So, yeah. And I think everyone knows that Alamosaurus is way bigger than Tyrannosaurus Rex back then. With the players. So sad that those days gone by. Those were the best days. Those were the best days of the game. Those were the best days. I still stand by that point. But hey, birds might maybe evolve back into more smaller dinosaurs. Probably not in big dinosaurs. Players probably not gonna get to big dinosaurs like Tyrannosaurus, because in the current meta, mammals dominate, so they might not become that big. But maybe they can try to become more like the dinosaurs again. Anyways, Tyrannosaurus had a bone-crushing bite of 6,000 to 10,000 psi at average, and 12,000 psi at the max. Tyrannosaurus had small arms, but they were still very strong. And Tyrannosaurus was thought to could go 17 miles per hour. It was the biggest predator in its ecosystem, of course. And let's not forget about senses. Its amazing eyesight. It gets this eyesight rivaling modern day birds of prey like eagles and falcons. One of the things that helped it with this was that players decided to actually make the eyes forward in player creation with the correct amount of evolution points, obviously. Tyrannosaurus had also amazing hearing, and it had one of, if not the best, scent in the whole history of the game. Well, thought in the whole history of the game. Tyrannosaurus had a decent matchup against its prey. I'd say something like it fighting against a Triceratops would be maybe 60 to 70% for the Triceratops, and 40 to 30% for the T-Rex. this might not sound like it's in favor of a T-Rex, but remember, this is just in a one-on-one fight. In something like an ambush attack, which T-Rex was fought to do, T-Rex could actually have a better chance against Triceratops. And this is where something comes into play, and it's Tyrannosaurus's intelligence. Tyrannosaurus had amazing intelligence, even rivaling primates, because remember how I said the Tyrannosaur players wanted to be more intelligent, so they did this. It was thought players back then have actually told us that back then they used to, go for the legs when hunting something like a Triceratops, where the front is super dangerous. If they could break a leg, the Triceratops would have a harder time turning to face the Tyrannosaurus, making it easier to go for the neck without being struck by those horns. But it will still be very hard because the Triceratops can swing its head very well, because it had something kind of like a ball joint in its neck. Tyrannosaurus could then maybe have something like a 40 to 50% chance, and Triceratops having something like a 60 to 50% chance, in my opinion. Edmontosaurus in ambush would probably have 45% chance, leaving T-Rex with 55% chance. Or in the ambush, it could also maybe have a 50-50. But in an actual one-on-one fight, I'd say that it would be 50-50, or the Edmontosaurus would be 55 and the T-Rex would be 45. Which is, that's what I think about the average prey of T-Rex mains. But sometimes T-Rex players might have thought themselves as super powerful and might have taken on something like an Ankylosaurus in a one-on-one fight. I'd say 90 to 95% chance for the Ank, and for the T-Rex 10 to 5% chance. It could flip the Anky over, but that is very hard to do. And like a fellow YouTuber known as Goji Center said, the Ankylosaurus can do a certain move preventing the T-Rex from flipping it over easier. So, this is very hard. And don't forget about that tail club at the end of Ankylosaurus's tail. And that's also the same that I think for an ambush would go, same percentages. And yeah, this might sound like T-Rex is nowhere close compared to these dinosaurs, but I assure you, it was very balanced, so, yeah. Anyways, this was my video on T-Rex players back then. I hope you had a good time watching, and see ya in the next video. Bye-bye.